And welcome everyone to
Blog
the Omie
Talk
D
Radio.
and welcome everyone to the Omie D and Fish show. My name is Fish, or Rodney Fisher, as those that may know me very well like to call me. We're going to come to you guys live on the road, on location for tonight's show. And again, these sports views are brought to you from the south side of the Trinity River. So without further ado, let's bring on the star of our show, the man whose opinion is always respected, always, let's say, controversial, I guess is a good word, but always entertaining, none other than Mr. Omie D.
What's going on, man? What's going on? Welcome back to a great Tuesday. Thanks for that introduction. And, this is the only podcast where both of us as hosts are constantly on the road, so you never know where we might be doing the show from. But that livens it up, so it's another hot one.
Yeah, and I'm coming to you guys actually, we're in two separate locations, which is the beauty of this show. I'm actually in New England, in Connecticut right now, and I got a great story to tell you about that. I got a really good story to tell you about that, especially you as a Denver Broncos fan who really appreciate some of the sports talk radio that I heard today driving around New England. It was classic. It was really, really something to hear.
I can't wait to get into that. That's one of those times that I kind of wish I was in Denver to hear the sports talk radio. Big shout out to the Duchess of Denver up there in Denver, because I wanted to hear what was going on, and I definitely wanted to hear what those Patriot fans were saying. But we'll get into that later on when we get in the NFL. I'm sure I got some stuff I'd like to say on that game as well.
No kidding. Well, again, I want to remind everybody you can go to iTunes and download the podcast there. Just search for Omie D and Fish, or you can go to iHeartRadio now and get the podcast. Just search for Omie D and Fish, or go to our website, ntxgame.com, and sign up, be a subscriber, get all of our events that we do, the live broadcast, everything, right there at ntxgame.com. So let's jump right into our first topic tonight, which, of course, is probably, I think, our most heated debate we had on the show last week, outside of talking about guys that may be hitting their wife in the car, and that had to be the college football playoff rankings. So the new rankings are out, and everybody's been kind of waiting to see how we're going to react to them. And I really want to get your reaction, because now we see the four teams, really no big change. Clemson number 1, Alabama 2, Oklahoma 3, Iowa 4. So they've got Clemson and Iowa playing each other in the Capital One Orange Bowl. That'll be on New Year's Eve. And then Alabama playing Oklahoma in the Cotton Bowl. That's on New Year's Eve as well, too. So that's kind of what they have going on as a semifinal and, of course, the final game. So let me get your reaction to really the top 4 before we jump into the whole list of top 25.
Well, of course, as you know, the top 4 didn't change much, as we said. Clemson still being the number 1 team. Alabama, of course, like I said, they played a really good game this weekend against Auburn. Auburn played them tough. Huge matchup in the Iron Bowl for Alabama, but, they pulled it off. So I'd say they deserve to be somewhere around number 2. Oklahoma, though, went into the Battle at Bedlam, and, they just pretty much showed out. Baker Mayfield showed exactly what Baker Mayfield is as a Big 12 quarterback and an NCAA quarterback, being able to handle the pressure of the Oklahoma State blitz. So I'm looking forward to seeing Oklahoma and Alabama face off. Last time Alabama and Oklahoma faced off, I believe it was the Sugar Bowl, and that started the downslide of what is Alabama's current bowl streak right now. And the way Oklahoma's defense played against Oklahoma State, if they can do something about Henry on the run, they've got a good chance, because Coker, I believe, is the quarterback, his last name for Alabama, he's okay, but he's no Baker Mayfield. And then we got number 4 in there squeezing it in, Iowa, undefeated, A lot of people are still saying Iowa hasn't really been tested by anyone yet. But to me, an undefeated team in D1 football is an undefeated team in D1 football. But they'll have their hands full this weekend face off against Michigan State because we've got another good round of games this weekend.
Well, you're right. There was no change at the top, and even Michigan State is still ranked at number 5, same as they were last week. And, of course, we know that game is going to be who gets that 4th and final spot. Will it be Michigan State? Will it be Iowa? The question I want to ask you, Omie D, because you know, Mr. Tailgate State, you really have an eye for what's going on in college football because it's such a passion of yours. But what I want to ask you is really kind of, what has to happen for any of those 4 teams to fall out of the top 4? Now we know, and let me just go back and give you a little bit of kind of case study for my question. So last year we know that there was a Big 12 team, mainly Baylor, who was in the top 4 going into this final week of the conference championships. Well, they were penalized basically because they didn't have a conference championship and moved out of their 4th spot and were replaced by a team that had one. So I guess my first question is Oklahoma, without having a Big 12 conference championship game, do they run the risk of losing that 3rd spot if, say Michigan State does beat Iowa, but they want to put them both in there? Or say Michigan State beats Iowa or they want to move Ohio State up, who only has 1 loss and is defending national champion. You look at, North Carolina and Clemson have to play. So what happens if North Carolina beats Clemson? Do they move into the top 4? So there's still a couple of scenarios out there that could shake things up. But is there anything possible that would happen to move a Big 12 team out of that top 4 college football playoff ranking?
I'm going to say as it stands, looking at the rankings, no. I feel that if Michigan State is to beat Iowa, there's going to be a huge discussion for the voters and the people sitting at their table this season if they're going to put Iowa in, Michigan State in, or Ohio State. But I'm going to say that if Michigan State beats Iowa and they technically beat Ohio State, Michigan State would have to go into the number 4 spot. Oklahoma, without having to play this season, play a championship game, I don't think this time, the problem with last year's situation, TCU and Oklahoma had the same record, and the only difference between them was Baylor lost. No, TCU and Baylor had the same record, and the only difference was that Baylor beat TCU at home, and the point spread wasn't really big enough to decide the winner because it became a tie for that in that conference. So, but right now, as it stands in the Big 12, there's a clear-cut champion. And, yeah, I mean, like you said, well, no, there's nothing that I can foresee because even if Stanford is to win the Pac-12 title, they're still not beating anyone that's going to move someone out of the top 4. So the only thing that could really shake anything up this week, it would be the loss, Clemson losing to North Carolina or Alabama losing to Florida in their championship games. But
let's play devil's advocate. So let's say that does happen. Let's say Florida loses to Alabama, and then let's say that Clemson loses to North Carolina. Who's in the top 4 then?
All right, well, you asked that because I was going over that earlier today when I was looking at these things. So Clemson loses to North Carolina. They're going to drop down to probably number 6. Ohio State would move up to number, or maybe number 7. They might move down to number 7. That's a big loss. To lose to a number 10 team and you're a number 1 team, you're going to have to drop, they're going to drop 6 spots at least 5. They'll be out of the top 4. They'll be gone. If they lose to North Carolina, they're out of the top 4. Alabama,
even though they've been Even though they've been, I don't mean to talk over you, but even though they've been the number one team over the last consecutive, 4 weeks, they're going to move out of the top 4 by losing one game?
By losing, it's not only are they losing one game, but you're losing one game in the wrong time to lose the game. And it's going to knock you down to 11-1. You lose to a team like North Carolina, which is only a top 10 team after what everybody's feeling like is a weak ACC schedule. So, that's going to kind of give everybody a thing about, okay, North Carolina really that strong, or did Clemson really solidify what we felt was going on in the ACC, that it wasn't that strong of a conference and they just ran through and were undefeated. So I feel like that's going to knock them down out of the top 4, because at that point you still have a bunch of 11-1 teams, and if Iowa wins and beats Michigan State, that would put them 13-0. And at that point, you have to put the undefeated team as the number 1 team in the nation. Because Clemson's not the defending team, but that's how I feel they would have to put the number 1 team. But in this scenario, we're saying Alabama loses to Florida as well. And Florida's ranked number 18. So if Alabama would lose to Florida, I think that would knock them out of the top 4 as well. So in this scenario, Oklahoma, Iowa, let's say Iowa beats Michigan State, Iowa would be number 1, Oklahoma would be number 2. I'm going to say they would probably move Ohio State into number 3, and maybe Clemson would stay at number 4, maybe, because Iowa would have just beat Michigan State, and maybe they might move Ohio State back in there as number 4. So, but right now with Michigan State and Ohio on that I'm not going to say Michigan State and Ohio. Ohio is on the edge of the window looking in, because Michigan State and Iowa, one of those is going to fall. So Ohio State in this scenario would be the Cinderella and would get the number 4 spot and have to face off again. Yeah.
Well, I do agree with you, number 1. I think of any of those teams that are out of the top 4 right now, the one that has the best chance of getting in there is Michigan State, of course, if they beat Iowa, but really Ohio State, because if Michigan State beats Iowa and they move into that 4th spot, well, the only team Ohio State has lost to as the defending national champion is the number 4 ranked team in the country. And how could you not allow a team to defend this title with one loss on their record? I mean, one loss, only one loss. How do they not get an opportunity to defend their title? For some reason, I have a funny feeling that Ohio State is going to take somebody's spot in that top 4. I think it's just going to happen.
It's a really good chance. If Michigan, like we said, right now, if Michigan State beats Iowa, they're in. If any one of the top 2 teams, Clemson or Alabama, loses, Ohio State's in. Right now, that is probably going to leave whoever is number 4, number 5 can in, and if Stanford loses, that's going to move Notre Dame probably up to 6. So, no, Clemson will probably be around there. But I'm hoping Alabama drops down to like 9, and they're out of it this week. So, go Gators.
I know you're rooting for that. So overall, give me your impression of this kind of second year of college football playoffs, where we're at right now. Do you feel like the committee has finally gotten it right? Do you feel like they're still missing a lot of holes in it, or different teams? Just your overall thought about the system at this point.
Overall, I think the committee is getting it fairly right. I think you got some misses down in the bottom 20, or the bottom, 19. Number 19, you got U of H at 11-1, with only one loss. I think it's getting to a point that they're getting it right. It's getting college football rolling into the direction that it needs to get to rolling. Possibly, as we said before last season on Tailgate State, into the 8-game playoff system. But I'm hoping it also gets college football because, we got to look at the SEC's record in bowl games last year. And we'll have to look at the SEC's record in bowl games this year. And we'll have to look at all of these other schools in bowl games. And let's see if these schools that we are putting in the top 5 for so long and then they're coming in, and they normally do, like the Big Ten or the school from the Sun Belt or something in a bowl, like the Armed Forces Bowl or the Chick-fil-A Bowl or something like that. But we have to really start taking into account the losses that these big-name schools are taking, or as we call them, big-name schools are taking, to some of these schools like U of H. We got to start looking at maybe somehow start crossing conferences. I've said this before. You sit there and you beat up on the SEC all day long, and then you face Pac-12 talent, and you're not able to match up. Same thing with Pac-12. They came up against Big Ten conference and got just pummeled. So you got to think: is it a thing of, is it just coaching? Is it a thing that regionally that there are so many different types of talent that these schools aren't getting to play against one another? So it does look good for them to beat up against one another, but in the grand scheme of things, when bowl season hits, which is a playoff, you see that some of these conferences aren't as strong as they should be. But, as of now, the top four, they have it right. It's a tough thing to do because it still goes into what this is championship week. And championship week is so tough because you have a school like Florida who's, not anywhere in the top 10, but has a chance of knocking a team like Alabama, which I'm not rooting for Alabama by any means necessary, but can knock Alabama out in a championship game. It is still part of the season. And, people feel like the Big 12 should have a championship game. But, if your team is strong enough to win all the way through, then Alabama should win a championship game and remain in the top four. But, that's the beauty of what is college football. As long as there is no playoff system like NFL, it's going to be this drama. But I do see one thing from a standpoint of a fan, a critic, and, a member of the media. I can see that the hype of college football has now been corralled. Last year it was just like Wild West, shoot 'em up. Oh my God! Whoa! Boom! Like every week it was just like, what the crap is going on? And now it's just, now it's just like, oh yeah, cool. This is how it is. It's college football playoff. It's like the NFL playoffs now. It's like everybody's content with the system and they feel like there's a flow, and it really does have a flow. And look at it now. Both of the biggest games are on New Year's Eve. That's a huge thing. Let's think about this from a money standpoint, Fish. You're competing with the biggest night in entertainment
True.
next to the Super Bowl. People are going to go out. They're going to be out till midnight. They're going to be partying, drinking. But you know what I think they've done? They found a whole new crowd of people like me who don't give a flying flipper about being out and getting drunk with a bunch of people that I don't really want to see in the New Year's anyway, or don't ever plan on seeing again. But I do like the idea of throwing a New Year's Eve college football party and spending it with some good friends, some good food, some good drinks. And
like that.
Yeah, I think they're doing a really good thing, but there's Shea playoffs. You know how the AFC championship and the NFC championship are on the same day?
Right.
I think they're gearing it up to see, okay, how much money can we really generate right now putting it on these days? But, it's going to be a tough sell because they got Jimmy Kimmel singing all kinds of commercials and stuff right now, trying to get everybody to stay home and watch it. But, I think they got a good chance.
You mentioned the money aspect of it, so they call it the New Year's Six. So this is the way the New Year's Six would shape up right now. On New Year's Eve, you'd have your first game would be at 12 p.m. Eastern, the Chick-fil-A Peach Bowl, which if the ranking stayed the same, would include Houston versus Florida State. Then at 4 p.m., you're going to either have the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl. 8 p.m. would be the Orange Bowl or the Cotton Bowl, whichever one they decide to air. But then the next day on January 1st at 1 p.m., you have the Fiesta Bowl, which would be Ohio State versus Notre Dame. And then at 5 p.m. be the Rose Bowl, Michigan State versus Stanford. And 8:30 that night cap would be Oklahoma State taking on Ole Miss in the Sugar Bowl if everything stays the same. So, again, you mentioned a big money grab. those six games with those teams that travel very well, big bowl games, it's going to be a huge, huge money grab for the NCAA.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. It's looking like, as I said, as I heard, there is what's the name of that team? U of H, the Cougars are facing off against Florida State. I'm really excited about that game. That might be the most exciting game of the day. If U of H can topple a team like Florida State, that's going to make a huge statement for integrating some of these schools, and possibly it's going to be a huge call to the Big 12 that maybe you need to include those Houston Cougars in your conference, because they're starting to build a program down there. They seem to almost got a deal with their coach almost. He hadn't signed, but he said he's coming back. So we'll see. But, yeah, it's shaping up, like you said. They've got 2 full days of college football, and, you know, I'm not making any chitlins at my house, so I'm going to sit up and watch college football all day long. So that's going to be New Year's Eve. I might be drunk watching college football, and I might sober up the next day watching college football again. I think it's awesome, man. You said money grab. Like, look at that. Look at the commercials that you can run on New Year's Eve when, you know, people are sitting home watching those kinds of things. It's going to be huge. It's going to be like a Super Bowl thing if they keep this kind of trend up.
Yeah, and I'll probably be drunk right along with you. So any of you guys that are out there planning to get drunk and watch college football, maybe we got to plan some type of event. So if you want us to come and host your get drunk, watch college football New Year's Eve party, just hit us up. Hit us up on Twitter. Hit us up on ntsgame.com. And, hey, we may come out there and just get drunk and watch college football with you. We're those kind of guys. So who knows?
Hey,
who knows?
We can even set the studio up and broadcast from your spot, you know, and we're totally down with that. I'll even bring a bottle, and we will travel. So if you want us to come watch college football with you, even better. If you got a suite at one of the college football games and you want us to come out and watch football and broadcast your party, we'll do that. Just hit us up.
Yeah, just hit us up. It's that easy. It's really that easy. All right, let's jump into a little bit more of a kind of a sore topic to talk about, and that's to talk about what happened Thanksgiving. So, you know, I just got through eating my Thanksgiving dinner. I'm sitting down, getting ready to watch the Cowboys game, and I saw probably 90 minutes of the worst Cowboys football I've ever seen. In 90 minutes alone, we saw Romo throw pick sixes. We saw the Carolina Panthers run right over us, and then we saw Romo get hurt again, broken collarbone again, out again. Now we're 3-8, and you know, and as a Cowboy fan, and I've said this for a long time, and I'm gonna say it again. I am a diehard silver and blue Cowboy fan, but I have never really been able to get all the way 100% behind Tony Romo, and the reason why is because I just go back and I look and I say, for a guy to have all these records, passing yards, passing attempts, starting games, to go down in the history books for stats as one of the greatest Cowboy quarterbacks ever in terms of stats only. In terms of pay, he's been the highest paid Cowboy quarterback, highest paid Cowboy ever. But you only have 2 playoff wins. You got no Super Bowls. And now you're getting hurt year after year. I mean, since the back injury, he's been getting hurt every year. Something always happens. So as a Cowboy fan, I really feel like, Omie D, that this is like, if the writing's not on the wall now, that this is the end of the Romo era. You know, I know he's 34. This has got to be the end of the era. You can't rely on this guy for the next season. You can't rely on him anymore. You got to draft a quarterback. Now you're 3-8. He's not coming back. Okay. This is the year that you get that high draft pick. This is the year where you suck, and you get a high draft pick, and you draft a quarterback to play behind this guy. No more Matt Castles, no more Brandon Whedons, no more John Kidners, no more Kyle Ortons. We've got to find a quarterback to play with these young guys that we have on the team. I don't understand why that's not a no-brainer. So today I'm in Connecticut. I'm driving through New England today, and they played some audio from Jerry Jones, who was on the Fan today. He's on the Fan there locally every Tuesday morning in Dallas, and Jerry Jones has the audacity, the unmitigated gall to get upset at the host of the show for them questioning, does he need to draft a quarterback and get ready to replace Romo? And this is what his quote said. He said, "This is not a damn debate, guys. You're asking me what I think, and I think we've got an outstanding quarterback ahead of us for the next 4 or 5 years." 4 or 5 years? 4 or 5 years? Am I missing something? I mean, am I just not? I'm not comprehending this at all.
I think maybe we might be missing the fact that Jerry Jones might be changing color tone, and maybe he's looking at Jamil Showers on his practice squad as we've got a decent quarterback for the next 4 or 5 years if we can just get him working. I mean, because Tony Romo, and you're right on everything that you said, Fish, starting with the fact that you are a true Cowboys fan, diehard Cowboys fan, because 3 weeks ago, all the Cowboy fans were talking about, yeah, everybody was talking shit about Romo now, and Romo's this, and this guy's a top-tier quarterback, this, there, and the other, and now Romo's hurt, and everybody's going, Romo, it's time to get a new quarterback, and he's out of here, and this, that, and the other. But it is the writing on the wall. It's huge. It should be spray-painted like something that came straight out of the 80s movie like American Graffiti or Breaking or something, that you need to start thinking about what's the quarterback situation. I think I've said it before. If you don't remember the early 2000s, the Quincy Carters and the Drew Bledsoe eras and the things where there was no quarterback situation in Dallas, yeah, you better start figuring something out because it's not looking good for Tony Romo. I will say this, and we didn't get this rolling at the beginning of football season, but you might have remembered me saying this when it came down to the Tony Romo injuries and the Dez Bryant injuries. And I'm a Cowboys fan. I'm more diehard than most people realize because I still see light at the end of the tunnel for the Cowboys being in the playoffs. But I said Tony Romo should not have come back until the game probably after this one. This one coming up because they play the Redskins. This is the game I felt like Tony Romo should have come back in the regular action, him and Dez, because at that point the division was struggling. It was weak. We were only 2 games behind. Well, 1 game behind, and we just needed some things to go our way. But either way it goes, if we beat Washington the last 2 games of the season, we would have stood a chance to been in it in our division. And we still do as the Dallas Cowboys. We have to beat Washington these 2 games. The Giants have to lose to Philadelphia because they just lost to Washington. They have to lose to Philadelphia coming up. And Washington has to lose 1 more game. I think they got to play Philly 1 more time. And if the Cowboys beat the Eagles 1 more time at the end, I think everybody will be tied atop, at the same record in the NFC. And, of course, everybody beat up on the Eagles. But in the NFC, and it's going to go down to tiebreakers, and the Cowboys beating the Redskins 2 games should take it. But like I said, that's a miracle to happen right now.
But I hear that strategy, and there's a part of me that says, hey, there's a chance we can still get in there. But my thing, this is where I look at the situation now. Jerry, and if I could sit down and have a glass of Johnny Walker Blue with Jerry right now, we'd have a cigar, Johnny Walker Blue, sit in the suite, and I just have a conversation with him and tell him, look, Jerry, You got a built-in excuse right now to suck. No one's going to be mad at you if you lose the rest of these games. No one's going to be upset if you go 3-13. Nobody's going to be mad. You don't have your quarterback. And you lost 7 straight games without him. Now he's hurt again. You can lose the next 5 games. No one's going to be upset. No one's going to be mad. No one's going to want to get rid of you. No one's going to be hollering, fire Jerry or get him out of GM. You got a built-in excuse to be the worst team in the league, get the best draft pick you can, and pick a quarterback. You got a built-in excuse. I don't know who's advising Jerry, and I know Steven is not smart enough to come up with this, but I would sit across the table and tell Jerry, look, man, this is your chance to draft a good quarterback. You mentioned some of the guys that, I watched that kid from Michigan play over the weekend, and to me, he made every NFL throw imaginable. He's had a year under Harbaugh, and he looks like he could go and start for the 49ers. I mean, there are some quarterbacks out there that can really play. You can go get a guy. Matt Castle, Brandon Wheaton, any of these backup quarterbacks you see in the league right now. I mean, there's only one backup quarterback in the league that's doing anything. He's 40 years old. His name is Hasselbeck. That's it. Yeah. Everybody else can't win a game. You got to build an excuse to get the number 1 pick. Why would you not do it?
And the thing about it is, you make the best point ever. You have the built-in excuse, even from a fandom standpoint. Fans are just like, well, we suck now. Let's just get the number 1 draft pick. And, of course, everybody's looking at drafting a quarterback. But what if we do go through and suck? And then, you got to tell all these guys, all right, we're going to dial it back. We're going to put a bunch of rookies in now. At some point, you got to play the Redskins game. You got to leave your starters in, and you got to play the Redskins game, and you got to win that game. Okay? If you win that game, then you play on. If you lose that game to the Skins, that completely puts you out of the playoff picture. You're completely out of the wild card picture. You're completely out of the playoff picture. It's time to start planning and plotting like you're the LA Lakers. It's the done deal. So I have to agree. Like, you sitting down with Jerry with the Johnny Walker Blue. Yeah, man, it's time to look. But do you think Jerry is honestly going to take a quarterback in the draft?
Man, how could he not? How could he not? How could he not take one?
But do you think he is? I think he'll end up taking a running back with his first pick.
You should have did that this past year. I mean, look, I can go on and on and on with what me and Jared would talk about. We got a lot to discuss, okay? But, man, this is your opportunity. This is the chance that you have to keep Romo on your roster, have a bad season, and no one will blame you for it. This is the chance. Dude, this is the opportunity to do that.
It's the perfect opportunity. And it's the perfect opportunity for you to get, like you said, your future of your team, to get them there and have them sitting behind the guy or even working behind the guy or with the guy when he's injured to learn an NFL-style offense and be the next prototype quarterback to the Aaron Rodgers story.
Right.
Sit behind Brett Favre for 3-4 seasons. Heck, let's look at Denver. It might be the Brock Osweiler story. You've been behind Peyton Manning for a couple good seasons, and you come out and you win 3 games. Not only win 3 games, but you topple the AFC giant New England Patriots. So
we're gonna talk about that because I got some questions I want to ask you about Brock Osweiler. That's a good segue to that, but before we jump right into it, the last thing I want to ask you about the Cowboys, and I pondered this as I'm driving through the wooded areas of Connecticut today, is what was the first mistake? Anytime you have a season like this where it's mistake on top of mistake and the ball is rolling downhill, so to speak, and everything's getting worse and worse and worse, what was the first mistake? Was the first mistake not signing DeMarco Murray? Was the first mistake not drafting a running back? Was it keeping Joseph Randle, who claimed there was still meat on the bone, who was just arrested last week? He wasn't even on the roster. Was it bringing in Greg Hardy? Was it, keeping Brandon Whedon? What was the first mistake in your mind to this disastrous season?
I'm going to say the first mistake. The first mistake was putting Tony Romo back in too early. That's what I'm going to say the first mistake was.
So you said everything was fine up until then?
I'm going to say everything was playable and playoffable until then. Because I'm still standing on the fact of had you done these injury recoveries the correct way, knowing one thing, that if a rock is rolling down the hill, you don't try to stop it while it's rolling. You make a plan to either slow it down or what you're going to do when it gets to the bottom of the hill. And I don't think the Cowboys really ever saw themselves heading downhill until they realized it was too late and they were already down there. And then they got that point, they panicked. They wanted to bring Romo back. And I think the fans kind of had something to do with them screaming Romo needs to come back, man. 8 weeks is 8 weeks on an injury. And yes, your opposite throwing arm, but, man, that's a bone. And like you said, you're getting old in football years, and you're not going to recover as fast as you did in your 20s. And that bone is not going to mend. So he needed some extra time, and they didn't need him back. So, yeah, I came by putting Romo in too early. But if you want me to say something that happened early in the season, yeah, I'm going to say keeping Dunbar and Randall and not clearing some room for DeMarco. But I think also that came on DeMarco by wanting so much more money and going to Philadelphia, and he still is having no chance. So can't always be greedy.
Well, I think you had a good point where you said if a rock is rolling downhill, you don't jump in front of it to try to stop it. You try to, first of all, make some type of plan about how you're going to slow the rock down. And throwing Romo out there was kind of like, okay, well, throw Romo in front of the rock. He'll stop it. And it didn't work out like that. To me, I think the first mistake is not keeping that team you had last year, the 12 and 14, not keeping them together. That was the first mistake. You had a team. You had guys that were there that had a mission. That felt like they left some food on the table, so to speak. They wanted to go back and continue what they had the previous season. And then you let everybody kind of go on about their way. DeMarco Murray, a few other guys. And I just feel like not keeping that team together the way it was the first mistake that helped kind of make this a disastrous season. But, Jerry, if you're listening to me, come on, man. This is it. This is it, Jerry. I'm going to put some faith in you here, but I'm losing it really fast. So you mentioned quarterbacks and backups, so I want to talk about your Denver Broncos real quick and get your thoughts on what was a beautiful Sunday night game. As everyone knows, I'm not a New England Patriots fan by any means. And to see them lose like that to Osweiler, a backup quarterback, the understudy of Peyton Manning, come out there and win that game. And then the way they won in overtime, running the football, it was great to see. So I want to get your take on kind of how you felt about that win and what this means for Denver overall.
Well, as a Denver Broncos fan, that was a great win. You follow me on Twitter at the 777kid. I said future looks pretty good for the Broncos with Brock Osweiler. I mean, the guy was making some throws, and, it was his first start, and it was a rough field. It was cold in Denver, snowy. Things weren't even really going the way that Tom Brady likes to go. And, they used to playing in crap up there in crap England. But it was good to see the running game, C.J. Anderson get his legs under him and get down the field. And then Osweiler, he figured it out. He figured out how to throw a ball in conditions like that to give his receiver an opportunity. You can't throw them on a rope because they can't react as fast. You just have to let them get in position and throw it up. And that's what he did twice. He did it to Sanders. We got him down there, and he did it to Demaryius Thomas with 2 key grabs that kind of really broke New England's back. But, New England, I will give them this much. They didn't have Amendola. They didn't have Edelman. And, then Gronkowski got hurt, and their feelings were all hurt. So, that's their excuse for losing, that we lost Gronkowski, and we were all, down and stuff, and that pretty much just ended the game for us. They're not an NFL quality team without Gronkowski, but, I'm not going to say who's a whiny baby, but go Brock Osweiler.
Let me tell you who they're blaming, because all day today I'm listening to 93.7 WEEI here in Boston, where they call themselves the Patriot station, and all day, every call, every person, every guest, from Teddy Bruschi to Rodney Harrison, everybody that was on the show, on the radio with them today, blames the referees. I mean, you have people calling in saying that, it's a conspiracy theory because the NFL doesn't like Brady, or the NFL doesn't like the Patriots. The referees blew that game. I mean, they gave the Broncos zero credit for winning that game. I mean, none. I mean, every host I heard today blamed the referees. This should have been called. That should have been called. He missed that call. He missed this call. The referees took that game from us. No one talked about the injuries. No one talked about Brock Osweiler and what he did, the Denver defense. I mean, none of that. The running game or the inability for the Patriots to stop the running game with C.J. Anderson, nobody talked about that at all. It was 100% blame the referees. That's all they wanted to do.
What do you expect a bunch of cheaters to do that when you don't get calls on your way? Because you know what? Here's what I heard. That wasn't an offensive pass interference against Gronkowski. He's been called for that 3 times this season. Clearly, these are the same analysts, Brewskis and Harrisons, that are saying that Dez Bryant didn't make the catch because by the letter of the book, that wasn't a catch. Well, you know what? By the letter of the book, if you extend your arm, that's pass interference. Okay? Now, let's look at the other call that all the little New England Patriots, the cheaters, are complaining about, that they get away with plenty of crap. But let's look at the holding, the pass interference in the end zone that negated the sack that would have brought up like a 3rd and 19 and put put Rashae Caldwell into the hero spot. But by the book, the receiver turned and the defensive back grabbed his opposite shoulder. That is pass interference. Mm-hmm. Whether the guy was going down, he was trying to make the throw, he couldn't turn around fast enough for the guy to make the decision because he was held. Granted, had that been Danny Amendola, they'd have been all crying and stuff. They got away with a hold in the end zone, and Tom Brady and them, same thing. I just get tired of the Patriot fans complaining. Have you ever just watched the New England Patriots game, bro, and seen how many times Tom Brady is signaling for to be reset? Yeah. Just watch. And have you ever seen? I've seen it happen twice. That there was no reason for them to reset the play clock, and he just did it, and the referee reset the play clock.
Yeah, I've seen it too.
I'm like, whoa. How does Tom Brady get a play clock reset just because he walks out on the field and starts doing the reset? But, see, people that complain about stuff like that are people that know the rules so very well because they bend them all the time. The Patriots are a team, and they said this, I heard this on a couple local stations down here. Oh, I was amazed that Bill Belichick didn't know that rule about the timeout. He seems to know every other rule in the NFL that is correct because he knows how to cheat and bend every rule. He knows how to bend every rule to get away with everything, and then every time they get caught, it's like, oh, well, we didn't know we couldn't do deflate footballs. Oh, we didn't know we couldn't tape practice. Oh, we didn't know we couldn't use drones. Like, it's the silliest thing for them to always be complaining. It's like the Patriots are just this team that's ordained by God and Jesus themselves, and they can't do anything wrong. It's like, oh, the Patriots, they lost the game. They couldn't have lost it because the team was better. The referees had to have stopped them from winning that game. Like, the referees didn't blow any other freaking calls against the Broncos, but nobody wants to talk about those because we won the game. Who cares what calls they blew against us?
Omie D, let me just tell you, it was sickening. It was disgusting the way they were just putting all the blame on the league, on the referees, and I even heard the conspiracy theory that ESPN hates the Patriots because apparently they put up a post today with their new power rankings, right? So they had, of course, Carolina is number 1. They had New England at 2, Denver at 3, right? And the picture, the graphic that they put up for the power rankings had a picture of Cam Newton kind of dancing in the end zone, had a picture of Brock Osweiler kind of running away, throwing the ball, right? But then had a picture of Tom Brady getting sacked, okay? And they called in for an hour complaining about how ESPN hates the Patriots, right? And ESPN is located in Bristol, Connecticut, okay? They're in New England. They employ a bunch of people that play for New England, okay? So it's like, are you serious? I mean, it was utterly disgusting and sickening. I mean, all day they blamed everybody else. They never gave the Broncos any credit. Never gave the defense any credit for getting to Brady and hitting them. Never gave C.J. Anderson any credit for the way he ran in those kind of rough weather conditions. Never gave him any credit for Osweiler in his second start as a rookie, to come in there in a big game like that in front of millions of people watching and to win against the Patriots, an undefeated team, gave him no credit whatsoever. And it was disgusting. It was really disgusting. And you can imagine I'm listening like, I can't believe it. I wish I would have recorded it and played it on the show tonight because it was unbelievable what I was hearing. But I want to ask you a quick Denver question because we're going to talk about Kobe's retirement before we close out the show. Here's the Denver question I want to ask you. As a Denver Broncos fan, if Peyton Manning would have played that game, would they have won that game?
I'm going to say no. If Peyton Manning would have started that game, I'm going to say no. What I've seen from Peyton Manning all year, whether they want to say Peyton Manning's hurt, Peyton Manning this, Peyton Manning's still one of the greatest minds of the game, all of this is true. But Peyton Manning is not 100% physically Peyton Manning. And one thing about that, when your team starts to lack or feel that you're lacking, then they start lacking confidence in you, especially in the plays. Like, I'm having to come back to a lot of balls I didn't used to have to come back to, and I just don't think that he's at that level right now, watching him this season. He's made some good throws, but you're going to have to design an offense around Peyton Manning and his condition to get him to win. You're not going to be able to go down the field 30, 40 yards anymore. And you're not going to get much of a scrambling option with Peyton Manning at all. So, and honestly, I'll tell you, I hope they don't put Peyton Manning in until Brock Osweiler starts messing up.
Well, that's my next question is what happens when Peyton, say Osweiler keeps winning, and Peyton comes back and says, hey, I'm ready to go back in. I mean, does Elway have that difficult discussion with Peyton now and say, hey, look, we're moving to the future? Or, I mean, what happens, when he does say he's ready to go back?
I think you have two great minds there. You have John Elway, and I think he's great to be running a team. But I think you also have Peyton Manning, who's intelligent to realize what he is. He's a competitor, but I think he's also an intelligent individual to realize that he was brought in and he wasn't given, he wasn't going to be able to play 3 or 4 years ago with that neck injury. It was possible it was about to be done. So he might be taking a page from the Kobe Bryant story in the next couple of weeks. And if Osweiler keeps doing pretty good, he might just say, hey, at the end of this season, I'm going to announce my retirement because, it is a physical game. You keep taking hits on an injured neck. Look at Tony Romo.
Yeah, right.
Stuff like that.
Who would have thought that Romo was going to be more fragile than Peyton Manning?
Exactly. Exactly. So, yeah, I think Peyton Manning will take it well, but I don't think it's going to be one of those, well, yeah, we're not going with you, we're going with him. I think it'll be one of those Peyton Manning is not going to want to go back in until he's needed, because I think he's more mature now and smart enough to know that at some point every team has to start working into the future. It happened to him in Indianapolis.
Although I think you're right. I think the best decision is to do what it takes to win games. But inside, I know for a fact they're going to put Peyton back in. They're going to give him the opportunity to throw them out of a playoff win. And I hope it happens sooner than later, because I hate for it to be round one of the playoffs and then you put Peyton Manning back in and he has to lose another game. And anyway, I just think that in that game, with the way he's been throwing the ball, not having a lot of touch, he already said he couldn't feel the ball real well in his hands in cold weather. They would have lost that game. Mm-hmm. And there's no doubt about it, they would have lost that game.
I have to agree with you.
We'll jump into some Kobe Bryant retirement talk real fast. But before we do, I want to play this interview. We'll take a break and leave you guys with this interview that I found, a very rare interview. I played this on the All-NBA podcast last night. But this is Kobe Bryant's interview with the legendary broadcaster Chick Hearn, who has a bronze statue of himself outside of Staples Center. That tells you how big Chick Hearn was for Los Angeles Lakers, just the whole entire Laker nation. But this is Chick Hearn interviewing Kobe Bryant as he made his first start ever in the NBA. So I want you to kind of hear what he has to say, and then we'll play his retirement speech, so to speak. And I want you to hear the contrasting difference between the two. So here's Kobe's first start in the NBA. We'll be right back.
Well, he might be only 18 years and 5 months old, but this guy can do everything that the veterans can do and do it better, perhaps. Kobe Bryant, last night you get your first start as a pro. How'd it feel?
It felt good. Going out, for the starting lineup. I tried to keep a straight face and keep a serious look, but, I couldn't help but cracking a little smile.
Do you get a little feel of palpitation?
Sure. Because, you're so excited to get out there at the beginning of the game, I haven't done that since high school.
Right.
So I naturally get excited.
Speaking of high school, how big was the gym you played in Marion? How many people?
About 500 people.
500?
About 500 people.
This seats 26,000.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
The last time we were here, you played, I think, about 6 minutes. I was looking at the box score. Didn't get in. It was garbage time when you got in. Now tonight, being in the real time. What's the difference?
Well, the difference is you have to make a contribution early on. You have to go in there and produce right away and get the ball into the big fella, get Eddie some looks, and whereas when I got in there within the garbage time or the bench, I really didn't have to produce. I didn't have all the pressure on me.
You had to produce Sunday though at Seattle. That was a tough game, pressure packed. You were in the final minutes, and that bank shot you made from about 18 feet was a beautiful shot.
Thank you very much.
That might have won the game. Really?
Thank you. I got put in that situation. I was thankful for getting put in that situation. That once I was in there, I had to go in there and respond.
Do you like pressure? That's why you averaged 31 in high school, and 12 rebounds and so forth. Made 50 points a couple of times in a game.
I guess so.
You ran the show.
Yeah, well, in high school I had to.
Did you have a big center?
I was a center.
You were the center?
I was a Shaquille O'Neal, Lower Marion High School.
Shaquille O'Neal.
Blocking shots, pushing the break, passing the ball, and so forth.
You remind me a lot of Magic in many ways. When he gets a chance to flourish, put on a little show for the fans. You do it at the end of a play. Why not?
Sure, why not? I mean, it's there. Might as well give the fans something they can enjoy.
Right, absolutely right. Has Magic ever counseled you, ever told you anything about the game?
Not really. We really had the opportunity to talk so far this season, but I'm definitely looking forward to having some conversation with him.
I know you've had a lot of conversations with Jerry West. I don't know if you know how good he was as a player, but he was as good as that ever played the position. Has he ever talked to you?
Sure. We've talked many times, whether it was coming off a screen or a jump shot or, handling the ball in certain situations. Well, we've talked many times.
What about Shaq?
I mean, Shaq talk every day. Every day, whether it's in practice and he's blocking one of my shots or I'm getting a layup on him or something like that. We're talking, we're giving advice to one another, we're pumping each other up at the same time.
He really, really is a nice man.
Yeah, he is. He's like my older brother.
You have an older brother?
Shaquille O'Neal.
We'll be back, ladies and gentlemen, on the Lakers Basketball Network.
And that was a 18-year-old, bright-eyed kid, Kobe Bryant, on his first start in the NBA. With you heard in his voice, I mean, the guy sounded so excited about basketball. A lot of people have never heard that interview before, but, I mean, you hear his enthusiasm for basketball and playing with the Lakers, a team he idolized, and even talked about Shaq being his big brother and making those points. I mean, you could hear this guy's, fully dedicated to the sport, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what happened to that Kobe?
That Kobe still exists, man.
I don't know, man.
I'm gonna play Kobe's kind of retirement talk real fast, and we'll come back. We'll talk some thoughts about Kobe. But listen to the difference now, as Kobe, after he made his announcement last week about retiring. This is what he said after that Pacers game.
Oh, this is going to be good.
Kobe, can you talk about when exactly did you make up your mind to officially retire, and how draining has this whole process been on you today, knowing that the announcement was made earlier today and you had to play a game tonight?
I mean, I've known for a while, right, and I've always said, if anything changes, then, I'll change my mind. But, the problem became for me, it's, what does that really mean? I mean, a decision like this, you can't make that decision based on, outside circumstances. I mean, it has to be an internal decision. And finally, I just had to accept the fact that I don't want to do this anymore. And I'm okay with that. And once I accepted that, then it became time to just let everybody know. I mean, why not? I mean, it's just it takes a load off my shoulders and everybody else's, and I think it was just the right thing to do.
Were you emotionally drained tonight?
No, not really. I mean, I was, it's the first time playing a back-to-back, so I was a little drained for other reasons. You know what I mean? But no, I mean, it's I honestly feel good about it. I really do. I mean, I really feel at peace with it, and excited for what's to come. Honestly.
Kobe, with all you've accomplished, what's the hardest part about retiring?
Honestly, I don't know. I mean, it's tough to say now. I think that question becomes a lot easier to answer when training camp comes around next year, and I'm not there. I think that becomes a question that's a little bit easier to answer. But right now, I honestly feel really at peace with it. And I've worked so hard. I work really, really hard to try not to play like crap, and I just do everything I possibly can, and I feel good about that.
Well, you had said you didn't want this farewell tour. Now that you've announced it, or you willing to accept it, especially starting back?
No, this is extremely uncomfortable for me. I mean, for me, it's the amount of respect that I have for the fans on the road. I honestly. If anything, should be thanking them, and I think just to show a mutual appreciation and respect for each other to me is enough. But I really can't thank the fans enough, man. I mean, it's been such a motivator for me and such a catalyst for everything that I've accomplished. So I have so much respect and love for them.
That's when you started. You got to start in Philadelphia too. What's that going to be like?
All right, we'll stop it right there, but he goes on and on. But let me bring Omie D back in because couple thoughts. First of all, Kobe's one of my favorite players of all time. I'll just go ahead and say that. Those of you guys who have ever heard me broadcast before know how much I love Kobe Bryant. It was one of my first big interviews I ever did, was talking to him one-on-one. And that was one of the only players, the athletes I kind of met that I felt a little bit starstruck by meeting because I always watched him for so long. But, you know, the thing I find interesting about his announcement now is, you know, when he says things like, I can't do this anymore, or this is the time, I think someone needs to remind Kobe that you've got about 64 games left in the season, right? So it's kind of like, if you're going to retire, just go ahead and do it now. I mean, don't even put yourself through going through this long process. But in a way, I understand why he did it now, because now, as bad as the Lakers are, who lost tonight to the 76ers, who snapped an 0-18 winless streak, to beat the Lakers tonight, his last game playing in Philadelphia, his hometown. But now he gets to go around the league, and everyone's focusing on how bad he is of a basketball player now. They can really focus on his career overall. No one's going to say anything bad about him anymore. The interviews are going to be different. They're not going to focus on what he did that night. So they could go through and lose every game from here on out and still pack out every arena, still sell plenty of merchandise, and he could still kind of go around and hear everyone congratulate him and tell their good stories and good feelings about Kobe, and not be so much about, man, how bad he is right now. And I think that's probably the biggest reason why he decided to come out now with 60-plus games left to say that he doesn't want to do it anymore.
Perfect time. Like you said, the Lakers get a farewell tour, and they can suck as much as they want. But, yeah, you think about, you nailed it right on the head, how the interviews have changed from, Kobe was, 3 for 14 last night and he's looking terrible, to, hey, that guy just played our arena for the last time and he might have scored 6 points, but, man, it was good to see Kobe Bryant one last time, It was, nobody's expecting Kobe to put up 55 in his farewell tour. They just want to see Kobe hit a couple free throws and wave to the crowd, and that's it. Like he did a good thing, like you said. He probably made the Lakers some money, saved himself a lot of heartache and sleepless nights. But you also, like you said, I heard him say in an interview, I don't want to do this anymore. You got 60 games left. You're going to have to do something.
Yeah. you
just can't do nothing. Yeah, I don't want to do this anymore. So, but that's
so how do you rank? Go ahead.
Let me say, I did hear some life in his voice that I normally don't hear in interviews with Kobe Bryant. So maybe he is happy. Maybe basketball has been a stress on him for the past 10 years.
Well, one of the things he went on to say in that interview was, how he knew it was time, because he said when he would close his eyes and think, he would always think basketball, always, since he was a kid. But lately, when he closes his eyes, he thinks about things outside of basketball. Like he can't fully focus on basketball anymore, And that's kind of how he knew his obsession with basketball was over, Michael Jordan said kind of the same thing too. Once he quit obsessing about it and thinking about it, then it was it. It was a wrap.
Yeah. You're right. I can see that. I mean, same way with me with radio. It's like, as much as I try to get away from it, I always seem to come right back to it. So yeah, once you can live without it, it ain't the same. You just find a new focus, and I guess that's why Jordan went to golf. Maybe Kobe will go to golf now and try to get Tiger Woods in that.
I like to see Kobe be an analyst. Like, I like to see him to go to ESPN and oh yeah, because he's gonna be so raw. He's gonna tell like it is. I mean, that's one thing about Kobe. He does not bite his tongue. You know, that's why I would like to see Jordan as an analyst, because Jordan would be the same exact way. Kobe's not gonna bite his tongue for anybody, and I can see him just standing up there saying, you know what, that guy really sucks, or how this guy get into the league, or this guy couldn't guard me now. You know. I can see him being that kind of way. You know, that's just his demeanor and how he is.
And that's probably why the ultimate competitors don't go back into sports analysts, being a sports analyst. I mean, you got in the NFL, I think it's kind of different because you got guys like Michael Irvin, Deion Sanders. These guys are great competitors, but to be on the levels of the Jordans, the Kobes, where you obsess about a sport enough to the point that your family probably hates it as much as you do, at that point, I don't think they can go back and sports analyze, because it is like that. You know, that guy is going to suck, and I could have done better than that. And, you know, and I don't feel like Kobe Bryant has the personality to pop on an ESPN or a Fox. Like, what is Kobe Bryant going to do? It's going to be, you know, we're going to analyze, you know, this with Kobe Bryant. He's going to be like when they bring a couple of these other NBA stars in there, and you're like, you know, they're all trying to talk sexy into the microphone. You know, we pick a roll and around the corner and rolling. Like, you know, gotta be some light.
My name is Larry. I'm a Virgo.
Yeah, exactly. You know, you're trying to get sexy on ESPN. We're trying to hear some life. You know, you got, you know, it's entertainment from a level that I don't think Kobe wasn't a sports entertainer. Kobe was a sports player. That's why I don't think he really went out to entertain the people. He was trying to entertain what Kobe Bryant wanted, and that was to win. Mm-hmm. And so I just don't think he has the personality to do it.
Well, that's a good point. You know, what I thought was kind of interesting, too, bringing us back home a little bit, was what Dirk had to say about the retirement when he heard about it. He just said, you know, Kobe was an ultimate competitor. I'm just paraphrasing off the top of my head, but one of the things he said at the end of this comment was, "Man, you know, I'm older than Kobe. You know, I'm only, you know, he's 60-something days older than Kobe. He's like, man, it's a shame that we're all getting so old that we're leaving the game, you know." And it is interesting to look at a guy like Dirk, who's less than a year but still older than Kobe, and the way he plays and the way Kobe plays. Now, he you know, Dirk never tore an Achilles or separated his shoulder right after that, or had the problems that Kobe played like Kobe played. But it's just interesting how, you know, when Father Time catches up to you physically, there's nothing you can do.
So, you know what? You play around it. I think that's what Dirk has learned to do, and that has extended his career. Like, you're going to get older and you have to play different. You can't keep playing like you're 18. You know, and you have to adjust the game, the fadeaway, the jump shot, the hook. You know, when was the last time you saw Dirk Nowitzki dunk a basketball? Like, I can't remember seeing Dirk on the fast break catches the hoop. Like, I haven't seen Dirk catch a hoop. I don't know if Dirk can even catch a hoop no more. He's 70 tall.
Well, he caught a hoop in the All-Star game. I remember that. He did catch a hoop in the All-Star game last year.
Come on. Kevin Hart catches oops in the All-Star game.
Well, yeah. Yeah, you're right. Snoop catches oop in the All-Star game.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah. But Dirk is playing smart. You know, he's even seen from being a starter at certain times to being a role player and taking his time to be on the bench and saying, look, I'm not going to start tonight because I'm tired. And if I need off the bench, I can come off the bench, man. You think about a Dirk Nowitzki coming off the bench and giving you 12 to 15 every night, whenever you need it. You know, a couple rebounds. You know, and you're breeding and you're training your rookies, your centers in, and you have that guy to be on your bench, like you said, and to hone their skill and still be somehow productive. I think Kobe just missed his window to be that sixth man to ensure his legacy, because the past 5-6 years when they've been trying to build in L.A., Kobe should have started working his way onto the bench. and producing
Mm.
from the bench and starting to develop talent. Like, I just think he selfishly took money from L.A. and selfishly took time
Well,
and
I
didn't
mean,
realize
he gave them 20 years of basketball. I mean, he's the only player in NBA history to spend 20 years with the same team. I mean, he is the greatest Laker of all time. I mean, I think he deserved everything they gave him. They made a ton of money off of Kobe, and he did him another big favor by announcing the retirement early enough where they can make all the money they can off of it. His final game, I think, is April 13th, and it's a home game at that. So, I mean, they're going to make a ton of money off of Kobe now.
And like I said, he did him a favor. He's going to make a lot of money. He's made a lot of money. He's going to need a lot of money because now that the league is not paying him no more, he's probably going to get a nice little retirement. But, you know, Kobe's going to have to I'm going to see what he's going to do. Is he going to do endorsements? Is he going to host? What's going to happen to Kobe Bryant? Oh, yeah, his shoe legacy will probably stay around.
As we close out our show, a good question to close out on is, a year from now, what will Kobe Bryant be? Well, let's say 5 years from now, Kobe Bryant will be doing what?
I say Kobe Bryant will be doing what Snoop is doing. I think he'll be funding his kids' basketball leagues and stuff like that. But I don't think Kobe's going to do anything in the NBA. He might at some point. I don't think he has that drive, that desire like Jordan does, you know, to own a team and be in there and be the business guy. I think Kobe's going to take his money, he's going to take his hot wife, and he's going to walk off in the sunset, and he's going to slowly make money off of shoes, Kobe Bryant jerseys, appearances, the occasional little coaching deal. But yeah, I think he's just gonna kind of become a member of LA society or wherever and just be. But he'll surface every now and then like some of the old greats at the All-Star game and stuff like that. But I don't think you're gonna see Kobe being like Michael Jordan is.
I think Kobe's gonna be involved with some team in an ownership group or something. It may not even be an NBA team, maybe a international team. I think he's gonna be involved some kind of way in basketball. But that does it for
soccer.
us. Go ahead. He does like soccer.
He does like soccer. So.
Yeah, you never know. Well, that does it for another episode of the Omie D and Fish, episode 002. Make sure you guys check us out next Tuesday night. We'll be in studio next Tuesday, so check us out on ntxgame.com. Go to iTunes and download the show there. You can also pick it up on YouTube now, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, you name it, everywhere. It's everywhere. So follow us online. Follow Omie D at the 777 Kid. You follow me at Rodney R. Fisher on Twitter. So in other words, we'll see you guys next week, and I'll go back to New England where it's all Patriots all the time, I guess. So
go Broncos.
All right, thanks for y'all tuning in. We'll see you next week. Omie D and Fish.
We out.
Funny business.